on the list. Click.
It's quite a privileged life, Len.
And we're live. It is Sunday, June 13th, 2021. I have gotten over my terror of the blue go live button on YouTube. It is 5:02 p.m., 10:02 p.m. Edinburgh time.
Woo.
Yes, I know everybody is reminding me in the chat there is a new government in Israel. It's not what we're here to talk about today, but if you guys want to raise it in the Q&A, we can, have our mystery guest talk all about Israeli politics, about which she knows a great deal. I'm just doing it for the facial expressions.
Yeah, I know. Len's like, you did what? I get dragged enough already on the internet, and now you're bringing me into Israeli politics.
And we are here with Lenny, who of the Scott's Word of the Day. She's at Lenny Soros on Twitter. She is the by far the world's most interesting YouTube video making or Twitter video making university student linguist of the Scots language.
Okay, I guess it's more niche now. You're like, she's the best.
You were like carving it in.
She is a poet held together with duct tape and spite, which, by the way, is one of the best
it's quite
Twitter
good.
handles around, because to a non-Scot, it's never clear whether that's duct tape and spit or duct tape and spite. Because
I wonder if the etymology of that is the same.
Spite
and
spit. No, because in American English, the phrase "held together with duct tape and spit" is a thing.
Is it?
Yeah. I always thought that was actually kind of like something you were playing it on, but until Ben just said that, I realized that maybe it wasn't.
Like we used to say about lawfare. Oh man, the code on lawfare is held together with duct tape and spit. It's just an expression meaning, you
You're
fix
an
problems
inadvertent
as they,
punner.
yeah.
I genuinely thought I was being original
up.
there. I'm not. There's no such thing as originality. There's just me accidentally copying the American.
That's excellent. So it is spite, not spit.
Oh God, I'm like 90% spite at this point. There's nothing else left.
Welcome back to the show, Len.
I'm so happy to be here. Like actually.
So,
I'm so glad you came. This is amazing. This is like far exceeds whatever. I mean, like, I always like your mystery guests, but like this was a lovely surprise.
So, bring us up to speed. How is life in Edinburgh now? Is it getting back to normal? Are you still holed up? Is the university open? What's going on?
I mean, as far as Edinburgh's concerned, I couldn't tell you, mate, because I don't live. I live in Fife, so I think Edinburgh's back open. We are down to level 1, which means pretty much life's normal with a bit more hand washing. Glasgow is pretty much still locked down because they've been naughty, so they've got pretty high levels. Yeah, but we're just getting back to life. Everyone's getting vaccinated. My age group's opening up, so even the youngins are getting it. It's just try to get life back to normal. I think everyone's just scared about it at this point. We're just wanting.
So tell us a bit about what the last year has been like for you as a university student. So you're at St. Andrews, if I remember correctly.
I am indeed, yeah.
And so we were talking before the show started. Oh, I have to find my hair tie. We were talking before the show started about kind of like how crazy it's been, and kind of just like you said, you did all of your work from your bed, and you were just like, I don't know, I'm not in Edinburgh right now. Like, yeah. So, has the entire semester been remote entirely, or like both semesters? Sorry.
There was a point where there was like dual teaching, you know, you could go in if you wanted to. I personally didn't. I commute to uni, so the bus was an added risk, the class was an added risk. Even with masks, there's no guarantee. And I really don't want to die, contrary to popular belief. So.
Think about all the good poems you could write if you were dying, though. Like, think about that.
A deathbed collection, just me like, my eulogy. No, I'm depressing enough without a death sentence. The semester was alright. It was alright. It was just, it was difficult to balance work and life. You know, you want to dedicate all your time to uni, but then you have to think, well, I've worked for 8 hours straight and not had anything to eat, not had anything to drink, you know, but it's the self-regulation that I find difficult. Personally, being a student with mental health issues, it was difficult to sort of create structure where there was none. And then I went home and that all got better because my mum was making my dinners for me. So
isn't it nice?
It's so nice. It's like I didn't realise how much it would make me emotional till I went home and my mum was like, all right, you come and doing dinners on the table, and I was like, dinner? What's this? I don't have to make it. But yeah, it made me really grateful. And then, you know, as the weeks went on, I was like, I need to leave because I'm going to kill you all. So then I came back, and now I'm back being my wee hermit self, being, you know, really agoraphobic.
So when do you expect things to fully open up and be quasi-normal?
I'd say another couple of months and we'll be back on it. I mean, there's gigs booked, there's, you know, concerts back happening, live music will be opening up soon. I think it's just a case of everyone making sure they're getting vaccinated, everyone making sure that they're sticking to the guidelines. You know, we've got a tier system in Scotland, which means that if cases go down, we relax things. If cases go back up, we tighten things. So it's been quite a responsive system, which is good. We did have a full lockdown for ages, but then we responded to this, and everyone's been pretty sensible here. Do you know what I mean? Like, everyone's sort of taking it seriously because we understand the fact that it's a sort of community effort. So I think in a wee while we'll be all right. We'll be fine.
And the last time we talked to you, you were taking a great deal of abuse on the internet, on Twitter. That does not seem to be calming down.
People hate me. They really do. And I don't know.
So bring us up to speed on that. You don't seem particularly hateable.
This is true.
You seem, you know, your usual charming and thoughtful and intelligent self. And I am surprised at how vile your mentions are on a fairly regular basis.
We interacted, didn't we, a wee while ago?
Yeah.
And I think you saw a little bit of it when someone was talking about orthography. And, you know, I love, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love talking about I could talk about the Scots language from now until the day I die, and I probably will. But the way that criticism of me is framed is in a very specific, misogynistic, patronising way, which is difficult for me because I love to argue things in good faith. So I'll sit and explain things over and over again and then realise halfway through, you have not got a vested interest in learning, you've got a vested interest in making me look small and stupid, which I don't know, it doesn't click for me because I approach everything in good faith, and then I'll realise, oh wait, this is just somebody who wants to make me upset. So it's difficult because at the end of the day, I'm really passionate about this, and I just want to help, and I just want to answer people's questions and respond to as many people as possible. But then you log in, and I wake up every morning and I just dread checking my mentions because, as you say, it's vile. You know, I've had rape threats, I've had people threatening to hurt me, I've had people calling me every name under the sun.
How much is this is like you've fallen on some list of, like, I forget the jerk face.
Oh, yeah.
Face. Jerk face that, like, kind of, like, called you out unmeaningly. But, like, do you think that, like, that has, like, dogged you? I feel like that's maybe something like his followers, like, have put you on some type of watch list, and that just kind of, like...
It was interesting because there was another wee lass, I say wee lassie, she's probably older than me, but she does the same sort of thing as I do, Scots poetry, and she did a poem the other day, And I went through her mentions, and oh my god, it was disgusting. So I jumped in because you know, if they want to come for the Waynes, I will come back at them. So I couldn't not. It was making me really emotional because I was like, I know how that feels, and I hoped in my mind that lassie was stronger than I was at the start, because I had no idea going into this the amount of hate that people would give. So it comes from a place of hating the Scots language, in addition to hating an outspoken woman.
Yeah.
I mean, I have been surprised at how many people, like, I am far beyond being surprised by misogynistic responses to women, particularly young women who say things in public. But I am surprised at how much bile is directed at the Scots language as a, you know, just like a, I had not realized, I guess it's a reflection of my own naivete about the politics of language and region in the UK, but I had not realized that, you know, so many people would care about the specific orthography questions, or whether you call Scots a language or a dialect, that people will, you know, scream at you about it. It strikes me as, I suppose we have analogous issues in the States, but I hadn't realized that the politics of this one was that fierce.
I don't think we have anything like this.
It's the Scottish cringe is alive and well. It's the reason that Scots doesn't have a standardised orthography is because it was a repressed language. It's not been allowed to develop as another language because it was quite literally beaten out of Wales. Sorry, it was beaten out of children in schools because there was an Anglo-centric mindset that anything other than English was wrong. So in some ways it's not, I can't blame them. I can't blame the people who hate on the Scots language, because they're the children of the people who got told that it was slang and it's wrong. So I really do try and sympathise with people, but also there's a vested interest in diminishing Scottish national identity. And I'm not talking about nationalism, I'm not talking about, you know, our country's better than everyone else. I'm talking about presenting Scotland as an international part of a community, of a global community. Because if we're Scottish, in people's minds we can't be British. So it's this dichotomy of identity and not understanding the fact that you can be Scottish and British, or you can just be Scottish, you don't have to be British. You know, so the way that people approach me is they have a view in their mind of what I am, and then they attach their own prejudice to it and filter their comments through that. So when people attack me, they're not actually attacking me, they're attacking what they think I represent and who I am, which is bullshit. Sorry.
No, totally.
Go ahead, Kate.
So I want to kind of ask about the orthography. Well, I want to kind of, maybe you explained it just now, but I wanted to kind of like map it onto some of my understandings of being British versus being Scottish versus like whatever else. So it seems like it's maybe the reason you get such vitriol is because of the political element that still exists between Scotland and Britain and like the UK. And then there seems like there's wrapped up in that are classist things, and then wrapped up further in that it feels like that there is maybe the excuse of the orthography, that orthography can't be the reason that people are that pissed off on the internet. No one gives a fucking shit, right? Like, this is not like, let's be
Except
real, like
Len.
no, except Len. But like,
Really
okay, but no,
loves
but I
this
mean, like,
stuff.
but no one like stays up at nights and are like, oh, fuck you, bitch, for like not having an orthography for your language. Like, right? This is like, okay, right? It's an excuse for all the other. It's like, it's a pretext for the
Like, it's not got an orthography, so it's not a language. And I'm like,
Right.
So many languages don't have an orthography. English didn't have a fucking orthography until so recently. I'll kill you.
Okay, so we can do like, okay, you're maybe not going to get this reference, but the Jets and Sharks on orthography in a second. But I will. It's from West Side Story.
Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. But I will say this, that like I do think that it is a bullshit thing that people hinge onto. You might take it really seriously, and this is why you're also captured by the people who are using it as pretext, and you take them seriously. Yeah. And answer their questions seriously because you take the question of orthography seriously. But most of these assholes are using it as pretext to play out their gender politics, their UK politics on you. Right? Yeah. And so this is just kind of my supposition, which is that like, I don't know, that might be a helpful way of sorting people, is to be like, do I think this person is asking a genuine question that is interested in my research, or do I think that this person is using orthography as like, or whatever the fuck else, as some type of pretext to like assert some type of dominance over the Scots, or some type of weird class or race-based distinction.
Are they also talking about my hair?
Or, yeah, okay, what the fuck? You have the best hair in the history of the universe, so, like, I don't even know what that's about.
Men's obsession with my hair is so...
It's creepy as fuck. I actually have seen some of this on...
Saying. Someone's like, I've got no idea what she's saying, but God, I want to pull that hair. And I'm like... Is everything okay at home, buddy? Your veins are in your profile picture. I will find you on Facebook and tell your wife about this.
What is this, like... This is something that is incredible.
It's literally just hair. I mean, come on, grow it yourself if you want.
No, I can't grow that. That's incredible hair. But that being said, that's not like. But anyways, just really quickly before we get into the hair thing, which I think we should actually talk about. But like, I do want to say that like, basically, I just want to encourage you to maybe have this like secondary moment. Well, first of all, block people more, Len, and then second of all, don't like. As a person who also takes this naive, like, let me explain the internet to you, let me explain to you how online speech works, I realize that most people who are asking me these questions are 100% not actually asking me these questions because they want a genuine answer, but because they're trolling me. And I've gotten much better at discerning that quickly.
I block people automatically. I use a machine to do it.
Yeah. You should do this more, Len.
It feels fabulous. Great. Anybody who, if I even have a question about whether somebody's being abusive, I just block them. If they weren't, they'll email me, or their friend will email me and say, "What happened? Why did I get blocked?" It happens once a month or so that I block somebody by accident, and it is the best.
I posted
my Twitter bio now even says, I will block you for any reason or no reason at all. And I think it's just like, blocking is like the natural right of humans in this world.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you about something else related to your Twitter presence, which is that the last time we had you on, you had 75,000 Twitter followers, and now you have 90 plus Twitter. It wasn't that long ago, your Twitter feed. So like, most of these people are not following you to troll you. They're following you because the Scots word of the day is genuinely awesome. And you have continued through all the late semester stuff. The Scots word of the day appears without fail. Are you running out of words?
No, absolutely not. The thing is, people don't realize.
Well, I think that the Scottish people have very limited vocabulary, and so I was thinking that you would run out of them fairly quickly. That was a joke. Len, that's a joke.
The thing I love about it is I've not done a single cognate. I've not even begun with the cognates. Like, I started with all the different words and the regional words. I've not done any of the phrases. I've just started a wee mini-series on the Doric phrases, which are phrases that I don't use, but are the phrases that I hear my friends use, and the phrases I love, fit like, what about Chiffé was the day's one, like, there's just so many, and every time I do it, a new person will connect with a part of their heritage, or a part of their, a lost relative that used to say that, or I didn't think this was a real word, I thought this was just a word my granny used, And it's like, every time I get that, it's just a little boost of serotonin where I'm just like, this is amazing.
Can I say about the boost of serotonin that I think I texted you, like I tweeted you about this for a while. I have been off Twitter for a couple of months, or like off like my non-mentions for a couple of months. But I will say that like I was following very closely, and then like slowly things started to piece together, and you do this great job of linking back to like other posts, so that like all of a sudden it pieces together. And when you would say something in a normal tweet, like just like in the dialect, I could recognize the words, and it felt, and they were, which were previously completely opaque to me, and all of a sudden it felt like this magical superpower of like, oh my god, I understand Scots, like it's like happening, it's starting to happen. And it was so cool, Len. It was really cool. And it was something that I didn't even know that I was missing from my life until I followed your Twitter profile. Like, it was actually amazing. So, I mean, just like know that I'm sure I'm not the only one. People must tell you also some really great things that you've like done for their understanding of linguistics.
Sometimes it is just like, people will say, oh, I use this word all the time, I've never seen it written down. And that goes back to the orthography thing. Scots is an oral language for many people. It's a language of the home. So you can use a word every day of your life, and not like toty. A toty wee hing. I say that without fail. Small, it means tiny. But when I did the word toty, I had no idea which spelling to choose. I looked in all the dictionaries. I was like, well, is it with an EY? Is it IE, as most Scots are when it's diminutive? Like, what's the deal here? And that's why orthography means damn all. Orthography, writing stuff down, is just a way for humans to remember stuff. And we forget that. We forget that language and communication is mostly, how can I convey this information to you? And if you know exactly what I'm saying, if you sound it out and it sounds the same, well done, we've communicated. Orthography, that's why, I love talking about orthography. But at the end of the day, if you try and use that as a way to discount Scots as a language, that's such a, it's bullshit.
Well, it's also just as an empirical matter, it's wrong. The first orthography in the Western in the Western world probably is the Phoenicians, and so that's a few thousand years, or 3,000-4,000 years ago, at its origin. People had been speaking different languages. Humans had been roaming the earth in modern form for 30,000 years before that, and they'd been speaking quite a number of different languages, presumably. And we're not going to say that all the Cro-Magnons spoke the same language because they didn't have written language to document the differences. The orthography is simply a reflection of the difference of languages. The Cherokee language there was a creation of a written language for Cherokees very self-consciously in the 1820s or so. The Cherokee language existed before, somebody decided let's create a written language for it. Created a written language for it because they wanted to have they wanted a sense of legitimacy for the language, and and they actually published a newspaper for a while. But it was a very self-conscious effort to say, this is a settled nation that has its own, written language, etc. It's just untrue to say in any sense that whether something is a language depends on whether it's written or not.
Especially with something like Scots, where there's pockets of different dialects. If, like, take the preposition aboon above. It's aboon, a bin, a bean, a ben. All these are accepted spellings in the dictionary, and they're all for different places. And I guarantee you, if we standardise Scots today and put it and chose one, if we chose the one I use, A-B-U-I-N, everyone would be absolutely raging. They'd be raging. Because it's not the way they say it, it's not the way their granny says it, it's not the way they've seen it in old Scots texts, it's not the way they use it every day. So I think there takes a degree of arrogance to sit there and be like, aye, this is the right way. Because who's right?
I mean, the difference between, the reason that you write things down in the law is because you want that formalism because it creates rigidity and it creates adherence to that one structure. But if you accept that your language is going to be like a relic of the past and that it's going to be like hopefully something in the future, you have to have the flexibility of like not being inherent, especially I would say is like, it's a, like, there is something to, hey, E.G., there is something to be said, though, for, like, writing something down so that it can be, like, not lost forever. I will say that. Like, I was, what was I reading? The oral histories. Were we talking about this the other day, Ben? Weren't we talking? Know. No, the oral histories of, like, weren't we talking about the oral histories of, okay, well, I can't remember. But it was... I thought that we were talking about oral history and that we were talking about how it was written down in time and like that basically like you can or cannot write down certain types of it was actually around when I was in Iceland and we were doing it around Norse gods. And so we were talking about how basically because there was no paper in Iceland and there was therefore like very little writing in Iceland, and so like a lot of the texts were oral and did not get kind of written down. And so that became like a way that an avenue in which inadvertently the texts were lost or like the story was lost. And so there is something to writing something down.
Oh, there's a lot to writing something down. It's just not one. There's memory. There's certain art that you can only do in writing. There's useful communications to be done. It's just not whether what you're writing down is or is not a language that
or is legitimate, right? Totally.
Right.
When I tweet in Scots, and people try and correct me or jump in or do spelling and stuff. First of all, I've never been able to. I speak multiple languages and I can't spell in any of them, and that's okay.
I can't spell.
You know what I mean? Because people, criticism I get all the time is, "Oh, are you just dyslexic and you can't speak English and you can't, write English?" I can't spell in any language. I can't. I chose Spanish as my major because it's phonetic. You know what I mean? If you know how to say it, you know how to spell it, and I love Scots for that reason. But at the same time, if someone makes mistakes in spelling and you still understand them and you pick them up on their spelling, you're just a dick. That's
Also,
what am I supposed to do once I hit tweet? I can't edit it, so why are you telling me? For next time, I'm not going to mind 6 months down the line when I use that word again. Like, you're just being a dick.
English language orthography wasn't standardized until quite recently. I mean...
The word standardized is they standardize the way we both spell it.
That's right. Right.
So you tell me about standardization, like, where are we going to draw the line? We're going to start telling the Americans are wrong? We're going to start telling the Scots they're wrong? Like, what's the deal with that?
Even between the US and Canada, there are significant spelling conventions that are different. And there are parts of the US where the spoken conventions are sufficiently different that you would never spell something the same way. I mean, there is a standard American written English and there's standard British written English, but these standardizations are recent and arbitrary.
Okay, so can I ask a question related to one of the things that came up yesterday at the end of our Saturday show, Ben, which was people brought up the idea of like kind of pronunciation and like when you mispronunciate things purposefully to make a statement versus like accidentally.
This is a really interesting issue.
Isn't this really good? Don't you think Len would be great to talk about this? Okay.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, let's see if Paula is here.
See if Paula is here to talk about it.
The green rectangle.
Yeah. So
Paula
we had a guest
here.
Okay, great. Well, see, Paula, I don't want to let. Well, okay.
No, I'm not going to involuntarily rapture Paula in. But Paula, if you're listening, and you want to raise this question with Len, let me signal in the chat, and I will bring you on.
So I'm going to quickly give a synopsis of Paula's question, which is that she is a Lebanese American, and she was talking about the use, and you might not have heard this. I don't know if this happens in Scotland, but how people say Arab as Arab, and that Arab is like a pronunciation of Arab that is like specifically used to kind of like other and to create
kind of a slur.
It's
but
kind
it's
of a slur. Like you don't
It's a
say
microaggression.
Arab. Yeah. And so basically we were kind of discussing with Paula like the idea that like how does one understand these types of slurs as they're used, and they're not actually slurs. Like there is no change in spelling to speak about the like orthography. There's no change in spelling. It's just a change, I guess, in pronunciation or emphasis
and
on the
sometimes
wrong
a very
syllable.
sometimes a very slight change in pronunciation.
Oh,
You
we
don't
can
have-
see you. Hi, Paula.
I'm
Welcome.
not a green rectangle today.
No.
Yay.
Sometimes you, like, if you want to do it unsubtly, you say Arab, right? That's kind of a slur. But if you want to do it subtly, you shift the emphasis a little bit, right? And it conveys.
What's that one?
Oh,
Like instead of Arab, like what is it like?
so
Arab. Like,
well,
I
so,
don't know.
no. So first of all, I think the
Arab.
way many Arab Americans would want to be referred to is as Arab Americans, right? And so, and then so you drop the Americans, and
Oh,
you
yeah.
slightly alter the. So you say, Paula, you're I can't even do it right.
I know what you mean, though. There's like an
you just,
in-between
put
between
a
Arab
little
and like
bit of emphasis,
like the
on-
Texas Arab or like
Yeah,
sorry.
it
Do you know what I
gives
mean? Like there's
gives
like
you
that
a
really
little
hard
bit
A.
of Paula, you're
think
going to describe it better than I am. So
There's
you do
there's
it.
Arab, and I think you also like pinpointed a really interesting one, which is like someone came up to me and said, "Are you Arab?" Like in a versus "Are you Arabic?" Right, which is just a very different, just like intonation. There's a change in intonation, and then just adding the Arabic adds like a different kind of understanding, maybe of. I'll be honest, like even when I tell people I'm Lebanese, they just look at me like I've like, growing up, I've gotten like, "Are you lesbian?" Which is nope. I'm Lebanese. So I think there is
If only all of us could be lesbian just by being born in Lebanon. What a world it would be. Sorry.
but I think like there's just not a lot of cultural understanding of the area, and so people don't even know it's a country. So when I do hear someone say Arabic, it's kind of like you said, a signaling that they have some understanding versus "Are you Arab?" versus "Are you an Arab?"
Yeah, an Arab is aggressive. That's like Jew versus Jewish, or are you a Jew? It has this implication that like you should be wearing a yellow star or something. Whereas are you Jewish is just asking about your heritage, right? There's something very forward about saying you're an Arab, which is not quite saying Arab, but it's on the path. So, does any of this, Len, have any resonance, and just in terms of the very uh, subtle shifts in syllabic emphasis? Like, is there an analog to this in the million subtleties that you're talking about?
I would say that the only thing that I can compare it to would be if someone says, "Are you Scotch?"
Oh
That
yeah,
feels
that's
that
an interesting
immediately-
one.
As you say, like Paula, immediately, like if I hear that, it puts me on the back foot because I'm like, you've got no cultural understanding of the place that you're talking about.
So why is the words? I mean, all of these are arbitrary. But what is the word Scotch, which in American English is a perfectly anodyne, like people will routinely refer to themselves as, as I'm of Scotch and Irish background in I guess like it's a very common thing in among Americans to do that. What is it that the word Scotch conveys to you that is like rubs you the wrong way, the way Paul is describing?
It just shows me that you have a biological connection to Scotland. You've got your DNA may be Scottish, but you don't have you're not in touch with that enough to know that it's not something that's said here. I would never, ever, ever say I'm Scotch. I would never say it, and neither would anyone here. It's you're a Scot or you're Scottish. That's Scottish is the adjective. If you want to refer to food, you'd maybe say Scotch beef, a Scotch pie, a Scotch egg, or not even Scottish pie.
What about Scotch Gaelic?
Scots Gaelic, I'd say. Scotch.
You'd say Scotch because it's totally routine, including I think in U.S. linguistic circles, to describe the Gaelic spoken in Scotland as opposed to Irish or Irish Gaelic or Gaelic as we say as Scotch Gaelic.
I think that it's interesting because when I talk about Gaelic, I talk about Gaelic obviously because I'm from Scotland. My natural, I'm predisposed to say Gaelic and mean Scots Gaelic, but
right.
The Scotch to me, I don't know when Americans, and it is Americans because they tend to have a more, they're more in connection with their roots or their heritage, so they will refer to their own identity as feeling Scotch, and it makes me question to what extent this heritage is attached to a place or an identity that does not reflect the modern Scotland.
So, but the thing is, what I'm hearing is that the Scotch is like a choice. It's not naturally in like either the written or kind of the understood pronunciation. Like they put the CH on, and that's kind of has its own, either it's ignorant or it's like purposefully done to kind of be like
16th century abbreviation of Scottish that's an English word. It's not, I wouldn't use it.
But do you have any thoughts on I'm interested to kind of return to kind of Paula's conundrum. Like you have this word that's written and like all of these different pronunciations fall out from it that have like these, like it's not to go to the John McWhorter example. It's not like the N word in the US where you have like Negro and then you have the N word and then you have, whatever. It's not a slur that is set apart by an entirely different different pronunciation and a different anyways, I guess, and different like spelling. It's based on the same spelling and it's just a very different pronunciation. Do you have any thoughts about how that kind of transforms into a slur?
I would just if it's an intentional mispronunciation of the word Arab, I think that it's definitely done in such a way as to alienate people and make them, as you said, Paul, I can understand completely why it definitely makes you feel that way, because it is someone, perverting the way that I don't think you wouldn't say Arabic, would you?
Someone mentioned that in the chat, like Arabic technically isn't, it refers to the language, but I've never thought of it that way. I do say Arabic quite a bit. But I mean, you said you're a Spanish major. Yeah. I think maybe this might be like a more distinct version that I mentioned yesterday is I think when I first started studying French for my minor, there were a lot of innocent, like English speakers who would say bonjour, which isn't the correct pronunciation of hello in French. And you didn't think, twice about it because this is, your first year learning it. But then after, the first year, you recognize that maybe this person is just trying to be funny. And then after that, you recognize that this is moving from funny to becoming inappropriate to being offensive about a language that you clearly understand in an effort to mock it. And I think that is more obvious in a language class where you understand that there are people unwilling to make the effort or move past thinking it's funny to a new level of mocking a language which shouldn't be mocked.
I completely agree, and I think that you're absolutely right in the sort of, I speak French, so that the sort of, the deliberate mispronunciation of things is a joke. I feel like if you're part of a culture and you're part of a language and you are part of a community, you can joke about things. It's cool, you know, you're amongst friends. But if you're not part of that community, language, or culture, and you then make jokes at the expense of that language, community, or culture, I personally don't think that's okay. It's like when, you know, when someone will try and mock Scots to me, and be, you know, it almost feels like they're punching down, because I'm like, there's absolutely no need for this. So if someone's talking to you and they're deliberately trying to make you feel othered, or they're deliberately trying to make you feel like you're less than, or you're different, or, and it is, if it's a part of your identity and it's part of your heritage, if it's a part of you and somebody's trying to mock that, I don't think that's okay, and I'd definitely be never in there.
I really find it amazing, though, what both of you are talking about, and then also our conversation earlier, Len, about identifying people in their pretext. Like, how we get this, I don't know, for lack of a better term, I will say, like, professionalized judgment. This ability to decide, like, this very keen ability to hear someone say something and pretty much reliably, although there's some movement, but, like, pretty much decide whether they're saying something in bad faith or out of ignorance, or, which might not excuse them, to be fair, but, like, or to kind of, like, troll and set you up. And I just wonder how that happens in language with pronunciation. It's so subtle.
I would much rather, I was thinking about this the other day, I would much rather take 100 people in good faith when they're actually acting in bad faith than take 1 or 2 people in bad faith and they're actually acting in good faith. Because at the end of the day, I lose nothing for being patient, kind, or, you know, having compassion. Whereas, you know, at the end of the day, if I accidentally engage with a troll and I'm sitting there explaining things, giving them resources and quotes and things and try to help them, and it turns out that they're actually an arsehole, that's okay. I can sleep at night knowing I helped an arsehole. I can't sleep at night knowing I was the arsehole. I've just dropped my phone. I gesticulate too much for that. So just.
Well, maybe you're a little bit Irish. No, sorry. Is Italian? Who is the one that talks with their hands? That stereotypically talks with their hands.
Well, it's Italians. Italians just stick to
Oh, it's Italians. Okay, sorry. Never mind. Not Irish. Sorry. Yeah. As long as we're slandering people for their geographical.
Slandering people. It's time to bring in E.G. Phillips, Mr. Ducks with Pants.
What an intro!
You know, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, and it's good to hear from you, Len. It's good to hear from somebody who is a lover of language and all its intricacies and nuances and little bits of flavor. I am going to take this occasion to advance one of my own pieces of agenda, because although there is information on this on the internet, sometimes there is no substitute for local knowledge. And since you are in Edinburgh, I have an interest in performing in the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, and I am wondering what, if any, information you could impart upon somebody who is interested in performing, even if it's just giving a little local color as to what it's all like.
She's not in Edinburgh.
Oh, well,
she
knows the lay of the land.
I'm like, I'll go to Edinburgh now. It's fine. I'm fine.
Okay. Hopefully no offenses.
Just across the bay. I mean...
Yeah, I've been in the Fringe. I think it's great. I think it's amazing. I think if you're performing in Scotland, I think it's good to appreciate the fact that, you know, you can say Scots words and not sound like a dickhead if you do it in the right way. If you don't, you know, like if you use a bit of Scots, people will appreciate that and they'll think that's pretty cool. I mean, I always think it's cool when people are engaging with me and they throw in a wee Scots word, because going back to pronunciation, if you pronounce something wrong, say it wrong, or, you know, who cares? I don't say things right all the time. Like, so if you start things, you know, and have a few, what is it you're doing? Is it?
So, I'm a guitar playing troubadour, which I would say an offbeat sense of humor and an even more offbeat sense of rhythm. Think of Bob Dylan with flatted fifths, perhaps. There's a little bit of jazz influence in there.
Is also the composer and performer of the official theme song of In Lieu of Fun.
Oh,
as of a few days ago.
Yes, I'm actually working on a blog post or going into detail about how I composed all that. It was fun. But yeah, I actually did look into performing in 2020, and aside from not being particularly good at following up, we obviously know how that year turned out. So, but there's concerns about if I show up, how do I get people to come to shows? Are people particularly good about engaging with, some rando from out of town who says, please come to my show? Because this is something I'd have to do a lot in San Francisco, and it doesn't necessarily turn out all that well.
I think Scotland's a lot more multicultural than people assume. It's a lot more. I have I have engaged with so many people at university, especially in St Andrews and in Edinburgh and Glasgow, the bigger cities. There's loads of Americans. There's loads of different cultures and things being shared. So I think that no matter where you're coming from, people will come to it because they genuinely do have an interest in Scotland to learn about other people and other cultures and other interests and stuff. I think it's a really nice thing about Scotland is the fact that no matter where you're from, you can be Scottish. Like, no one's gonna question that. You can be first generation coming in as an immigrant and just be Scottish because there's just a sort of national sense of like. I mean, there's a good Scots phrase. We're all Jock Tamson's bairns. That's like we're all the same under God or under whatever you believe in. Like, we're all basically the same as people. So I think that's sort of like it reflects a national identity where you can be Scottish and be not born in Scotland. So we just want everyone to just come and give us good crack and good fun. Like, it's amazing. I love it. I love the Fringe as well. It's great.
Mr. Wattenbarger, or I should say Professor Wattenbarger.
It's Your Highness, but I'll take it. So, thanks.
Very out of vogue right now to be royalty.
Well, this is true, yes. But it's great to see you back on here. I guess I'll preface part of my question is I wonder if you ever thought that your Scots Word of the Day would be a hit, but beyond that, so I take it that this is for you right now. It's a passion that you pursue very heartily, and that it's still sort of a side thing, even though it's a big side thing, maybe. But I'm wondering, what are your longer term plans? Are you planning to do something with this and expand it and be your life's work or something like that?
It'll, of course, eat its spinach, grow big and strong, and become the Scots sentence of the day.
That's right.
when it grows up.
When I started this, it was just for my pals, and it was literally just to get me out of bed because I was so depressed. And I was like, right, I'll get out of bed, I'll put some makeup on, and I'll just be happy and do what I'm passionate about and share some words. And then as more people started to enjoy it, it became something else. It became a sort of daily ritual of no matter how I'm feeling, no matter how the day's going, no matter if I haven't even got out of bed for anything else, I'm going to get out of bed, I'm going to stand in front of the camera, I'm going to say something that I'm passionate about. And then I started releasing my poems, my poetry, and people like that and all, and I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. So, people have approached me to do book things, to do things on TV. I'm presenting I'm doing a children's competition for poetry, and it's like, I really think that this could be something. Obviously I'm going to keep going with my degree, I'm going to get a PhD, hopefully. I'm going to keep on with my education, but in terms of a career, I genuinely think this could be something that I could do because, and at the end of the day, I'm not doing this to be, I don't like the attention, I don't like the people, I don't like being perceived. I just think that the more people we can get engaged with Scots, the more we can actually make some change in the infrastructure. We can get it in schools. Like, I've had my work in schools, my poems, I've spoken to teachers about getting Wayne's engaged with the language and the learning, and it's just, it's amazing. It's the more that I say this all the time, but the more I he's up the lead, the more the lead he's me up. So the more that I support Scots, the more that Scots is supporting me and making me feel better. And I love it. It's great.
Yeah. Well, you clearly love it, and that really shows through. And I know that make it a winner of a a pursuit, longer term, lifelong pursuit for you. So, keep at it. You're doing great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Highness. Mike Godwin. I had to
Hi,
boot
Mike.
I had to boot you out to bring in Paula, but now you're back. The floor is yours, and we'll see how long it takes somebody to call you a Nazi.
Probably a long time.
Oh wait, hold on, Len. Before, I don't think Len knows this joke. Len, have you ever heard of Godwin's Law of the Internet?
Yeah.
This is Mike Godwin. It was named after him.
Or he named it after himself, to be precise.
He named it after himself because he's arrogant that way. What was that? Was that a hail, Mike? Was that what it was? You raised your hand. Anyways, this is Mike Godwin of Godwin's Law.
Law.
Hello, Mike.
Guten Abend, Len. Anyway, so my question really, I remember in 2016 when when we were running up to the Brexit vote, and there was also this a vote. Scotland was voting a referendum on independence, and I was very foolish. I thought, oh, Scotland, don't vote for independence because you want to keep the UK together. But then Brexit happened, and now, of course, we're on our way to perhaps another referendum for Scottish independence, where I take a different view than I took in 2016, because I think it's what Boris Johnson kind of deserves. Not that I'm biasing anybody's response on anything or myself, but I wonder what you think about the discussion of Scottish independence as it's happening in 2021.
Oh, big question. I've tended to stay away from talking about politics, especially online, because I don't want to feed into the narrative that anyone who engages with Scots as a language is just a raging nationalist and they think that, the UK is shit, so they just try and, up the Scots kind of thing. Having said that, I think that if a plan could be put in place with which Scotland could thrive as an independent nation, and it's in the best interests of Scotland, then that may be an option we need to pursue, because I don't think independence should be used as a punishment for England. I don't think independence should be used as a sort of, well, we're leaving by, like, kind of, spitting the dummy out, throwing the toys out the pram. However, if it's in Scotland's best interest to be independent, obviously Scotland should make the decision. And that is what I will say on that matter, so I don't get cancelled.
From Scots language and nationalism to Quebec, or Quebec on the way to Vancouver. Eve Gaumont, welcome back.
Thanks, Island. I was wondering, how do you came to be interested in your linguistic heritage, and is it common about people your age? Since in Quebec it is really not.
Is it? Wait, before Len answers that, is it not interest? Is it not of interest? I mean, it certainly was in the 70s. People were really, really interested in preserving the French language. Is it not of interest to young people just because it's been successful now?
No, not at all. Actually, we're on this. We're seeing a huge resurgence of the English language, and we're about to change the law in Quebec to make it more protective of the French culture, since in Montreal it's more and more English speaking and less French. But it's still seen as something from the boomers generation. People my age aren't so worried about that. Well, since it still changes, like we're getting more and more interested in the question, but like 5 years ago, we were it's a connected world. We're all friends, and we're citizens of the world, and English is good.
What I would say to that is, it's difficult to compare Scots language with French, as obviously French has a standardised orthography. French has, existed in places out with France, obviously, and obviously out with Canada as well. If Scots dies out in Scotland, right, like genuinely, because it's already so much of the language has been lost, but so much of the language has been forcibly repressed and removed that now I feel like I'm almost doing a wee bit of damage control, because there's phrases that I'll use and people say, nobody says that, nobody uses that word, and I'm thinking, oh my god, if nobody uses that, what about the next generation? They're not even going to know about this. So I think that's why it's important that we keep this on the internet, because obviously that's a permanent record. To answer your question, I became interested in Scots because I spoke it in the house. It was just what we spoke. It was just normal. I also was engaged in a lot of Burns work. I did Burns competitions. Robert Burns, who predominantly uses the Scots language, so I was getting it from a literary perspective and respecting the language as a sort of high art form in addition to being conversational. And then I'm also just a massive nerd, which I don't think people realise. And I learned Spanish, I learned French, and then I went back and did linguistics at uni, and I was just sitting there thinking, people need to know about prepositions and verbs and nouns and pronouns, all these Scots words that they use every day and don't realise, because loads of Scots speakers don't realise that Scots is a language. They just think, oh, I speak slang, or this is not my Sunday voice, or this is not how I'm supposed to speak at work. And then I'll come on and be like, you know that word that you think is slang? Guess again, that's an adjective, and you're using it correctly, and you're a valid speaker, and you should feel proud of how you speak. So I'm just so passionate about it. I don't know, I'm probably getting annoyed at this point, being on Twitter up in the wee small hours, being like, guys, I've found a new word, but it's just, and I really do think that having your dual language, in Canada, and having that respect for French and having that respect equally for English is important, because, your language is your language. You should have the choice to be able to learn and engage with whatever language you want if that's your heritage. So at the end of the day, we need to all stop speaking English and start speaking other languages. English is shit.
We are gonna leave it there. Stop speaking English, people. That's the Scots word of the day.
That's my legacy.
Yeah, we're gonna shut it down. So funny story about that, or not so funny story about it. It involves language repression. Under Lee Kuan Yew in Singapore for many years, it was illegal, basically, to speak any language, or it was, I don't know if it was actively illegal. It was really, really discouraged to speak any of the three major languages that are spoken ethnically in Singapore in public. It was basically an English in public rule. And of course the result was that a whole generation of people grew up not speaking either Mandarin or Hindi or Malay, and at some point Lee Kuan Yew became concerned about this, and so Singapore adopted a new policy, which was speak your language at home, and it was basically English in public, but please don't forget your other languages. It didn't work.
Yeah,
it's basically an English-speaking city now.
So here is like no one wants to hear a defense of English, which is just that it has allowed for there to be like a base level of communication with people in globalization. If you want to think of globalization as a good thing, which I generally do, actually think that it's a good thing and that people communicate with each other. I like a world in which we can communicate across a common language, Len, and I love learning about your other language. I think that there's a reason that we have all gone to one base common language in whether it be Mandarin.
Go back to Latin.
Or English. No, that never
Go
was
back
that great.
To Latin. It was great.
No, it really wasn't.
It was neutral. Nobody spoke it anyway.
Yeah, but my point is that there is some I was like with my Swedish relatives in Sweden, and like the kids were like singing English like songs in a car, and of course like, and then like the 8-year-old asked the dad like, why are we even like learning Swedish when we could just be learning English? What's the point? And of course I was like I was not like, no, I was like, Swedish is like a beautiful language, you should learn Swedish, like it's great. But there is like a value in there being I think the grossest thing that can happen is that people learn only a common language and no other language. And that should be like the call for differentiation. It's like, but it is nice to have like some basic thing like math where we can all look at like, you know, Arabic numbers and like kind of understand how to do like arithmetic and like figure out a bill no matter where we are.
I mean, I think I speak English fairly well at this point. I think, you know, I'm spelling's a bit shit, but
you're okay. I'll let it pass.
I try. But the thing is, when I'm raging or happy, or, you know, I want to express love, it just goes into Scots, because that's the language of the soul. That's what I was raised on. That's how my mum told me she loved me. That's how, you know, I was raging at my siblings. If I'm angry, I'm speaking Scots. So I think English is great, and if you want to speak English, that's fine. And yeah, I mean, if we all spoke English, we could all communicate. But I'm learning languages because I want to talk to people in the language that their soul speaks in.
Yep.
Because it's never English for me. You know?
No, I think
Hard
that's
to argue with that.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful point. Yeah, and I completely agree. But maybe people could have both, and that would be like there's like one for business and one for pleasure.
Yeah.
It's an advert for sort of multilingualism. I think if you're a monoglot, change it. No.
Totally.
We're gonna leave it there. Len, I was gonna say a great American, but that's false. You're a great
Don't
Scot.
you dare!
No, I always
She's
that's how
gonna,
I
like,
always end the
cut your
show. I
eyes
say
out.
to the guests, you're a great American. But you're a great Scot. We're gonna be back tomorrow, and it is the first day of Kate Week. Every guest next week will be named Kate. Kate's from all
just
walks
for fun,
of life.
Len. Just for fun.
We're not going to have Ben Week after it, or
Why
Scott
not?
Week. I don't know.
We
Well,
could.
Scots. I don't think there are that many. Do you think Scott Shapiro
We just
knows
have
that many Scots? This is
I
now
know
a
loads
different.
of Scots. I'll put you in contact. All my friends are Scots.
Yeah, but it's
I get what
different
you did with
usage.
that.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I see what you did there, Len. All that'll get started 22 hours and 56 minutes from now. And until then, Kate?
We don't have fun anymore, but we do have Scots and Kates.
Yeah, and a few Bens.